بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله حمد الشاكرين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد كلما ذكرك الذاكرون وغفل عن ذكرك الغافلون. Today's subject of our live stream and Q&A, of course, as was mentioned, was the topic of the entity known as Israel and its bombing of Iran, the IDF death toll, and the assassination attempt on Bibi, Benjamin Netanyahu, as well as other subjects which we will explore insha'Allah ta'ala. With regard to the recent bombing and strikes upon Iran, what was mentioned by Iranian leaders was, for instance, Abbas Araghchi said in an interview, he said, I think we've shown that our determination to defend ourselves knows no limits. This was one of the responses given on an interview on the official website of Ayatollah Ali al-Khamenei. And earlier the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said Iran was entitled and obligated to defend itself against external aggressive acts in reference to the strikes carried out by the entity. And what had actually happened, as we know, on Saturday, 2 a.m., which is actually the GMT time, our time, 11:30 on Friday. So on Friday night, 11:30, according to our Greenwich Mean Time, and of course now the hour has gone back today, earlier yesterday, on Sunday. What happened was that the Israeli military sent out fighter jets from occupied Palestine, and remember to always refer to what they refer to as Israel, refer to it actually as occupied Palestine. That is the correct term. Never mention it as being Israel. We do not actually recognize Israel. We refer to it as occupied Palestine because the entire land is occupied land. And what they said, what the Israelis said was that it was actually a response to months of attacks by Iran and its proxies. Now, this is how the propaganda is set out. And in a statement read out on state television, on the Zionist media, what they said was that the radar systems were damaged in the pre-dawn strikes. This was the Iranian state channel. Now, what the Iranian state channel said, thanks to the timely performance of the country's air defenses, the attacks caused limited damage and a few radar systems were damaged. The Armed Forces General Staff said the Iranian army earlier said 2 soldiers were killed in the attacks. Later, of course, we know that 4 soldiers were killed in the attack. Now, there was speculation that oil fields will be struck, or airports and other installations, perhaps even oil fields or gas, where gas reserves and these type of things. But nothing of the sort. What Israel claimed afterwards was that the sites that were actually targeted were military sites. According to Benjamin Netanyahu, he claimed that the sites were missiles were manufactured. This is what they claimed. Now, when you check propaganda on many of the news websites, for instance, the BBC, which is British state media, what the BBC have is that they have pictures of sites before and after, sites that were destroyed according to satellite images. And if you check Rupert Murdoch's news channel, Sky News, as we know, Rupert Murdoch is a Zionist, Australian Zionist, married to a Jewish woman. His news channel reports the strikes as being successful, militarily successful. This is how the media frames these type of things. What actually happened was that Israel did target, or the entity targeted, multiple locations across Iran. And these multiple locations included the north, east, and south. But the main focus of the strikes was Tehran, which is the capital of Iran. And the areas in the provinces like Khuzestan, what Iran said, it caused limited damage, while the IDF claims that it was not actually limited damage. Now, Iran's civil aviation organization said flights returned to normal across the country, and the attacks primarily aimed at Iran's air defense systems, missile bases, and drone facilities. Now, there's one thing to note, which I noticed on the Sky News Zionist media machine, was they mentioned the roles of the F-35. They mentioned the role of Western made jets, fighter jets, the effectiveness. But also what was mentioned was the air defense systems provided by Russia. So to downgrade the air defense system, these strikes were an attempt to downgrade the air defense system of Iran in order that Iran cannot defend itself, in order that Iran cannot counter-strike any incursion into Iranian airspace. But the Iranian air defense system is supplied by Russia. And recently Russia supplied Iran with upgraded versions of that air defense. Iran claims that those air defense systems were very effective, while Zionist media like Sky News and others, they claim that those air defense systems were not actually effective. And of course, the airport was not attacked. And now, on the side of IDF, the terrorist organization of the entity, Daniel Hagari said in a pre-recorded video statement, he states with regard to Iran, the regime in Iran and its proxies in the region have been relentlessly attacking Israel since October the 7th, including direct attacks from Iranian soil. This is, of course, the IDF justifying its terror tactics across Palestine and elsewhere. And he said, Israel has the right and the duty to respond. So, of course, the background of these strikes, we know that these were long expected, and the missile barrage of ballistic missiles, 200 ballistic missiles, which were launched at the entity earlier in October. And according to Israeli reports, one person was killed in the occupied West Bank. Now, I have an issue with Al Jazeera News. Al Jazeera News, they refer to Israel as Israel, and then when they make mention of the West Bank, they say the occupied West Bank. In reality, from the river to the sea, all of that land is Palestine. What you refer to as Israel is actually occupied Palestine. We do not recognize the formation, creation of Israel upon the land of Palestine. It should not be located in Palestine. It should be relocated perhaps to Germany or the United States of America. But what Iran had said, why those 200 ballistic missiles were sent and launched, was because the leaders that were killed, which is Hassan Nasrallah, and prior to Hassan Nasrallah, there was the killing of Ismail Haniyeh within Iranian territory. And later, of course, more recently, we've had the assassination or the killing of Yahya Sinwar. And of course, Yahya Sinwar, not according to what Israeli propaganda and Zionist media would have us to believe, that Yahya Sinwar was hiding out in some tunnels, or Yahya Sinwar was living in luxury. They were spewing out fake news with regard to the handbag that his wife was shown to be carrying, on claiming that the handbag is a handbag worth over $30,000. These false claims, claiming that Yahya Sinwar was actually perhaps living abroad, not in Gaza. But what came out was that Yahya Sinwar was fighting within Gaza, within his homeland, within his place of birth. And remember, originally he's from Asqalan, his ancestors are from Asqalan. Asqalan is occupied Palestine. This is why it's shameless for Al Jazeera News to refer to Asqalan as Israel. Asqalan is Palestinian land. That land, the Palestinians were evacuated, the region was ethnically cleansed. At the time of the Nakba in 1948, the Palestinians were expelled from numerous villages. Tel Aviv, that region was populated by Palestinian Arabs. And remember, Tel Aviv was only founded in around 1909, 1910. Prior to that, it was villages, clusters of Palestinian villages. So the 200 ballistic missiles that were launched upon the IDF, the terror group known as IDF, were as a result, a response for the killing of Ismail Haniyeh on Iranian soil and the killing of Hassan Nasrallah within Lebanon. Now, at this time, the US says with regard to the cycle of fighting that Iran needs to break the cycle of fighting. Of course, the United States is governed by what is known as the Jewish state. The Jewish state, which is referred to as Israel. Israel governs the United States of America. There is much to say with regard to the tornado. Those tornadoes that struck the USA recently, there is more funding for the IDF and its military machine. There is more funding for what is referred to as Israel than the people of the United States of America. And the two candidates we have now standing up for elections within the United States of America, one of whom is Donald Trump, both of them are devotees of what is known as the State of Israel. There are some Muslims who think Donald Trump will be better for Muslims. In reality, neither will be good for Muslims, because America is controlled by the Israelis. The United States of America does not control Israel. What is referred to as Israel actually controls the United States of America, and that has been demonstrated within the past year. So what the United States of America, when people say Donald Trump is better for Muslims, in reality Donald Trump, he was the one who declared the Golan Heights as being annexed to what is referred to as Israel officially. He declared Jerusalem as the capital of what is referred to as Israel. Donald Trump was the one who carried out those acts of recognizing what they refer to as Israel, as Jerusalem being the capital of what they refer to as Israel. Now, what the United States of America said, the US National Security Council spokesperson, Sean Savit, what he told reporters: we urge Iran to cease its attacks on Israel so that this cycle of fighting can end without further escalation. So there is a clear policy of not wanting a further escalation. And what he said, their response was an exercise in self-defense. He's referring to the IDF, that their exercise was their response was an exercise in self-defense, and specifically avoided populated areas and focused solely on military targets, contrary to Iran's attack against Israel that targeted Israel's most populous city. Now, someone should ask this Sean Savit, who of course is just reading a script. Someone should ask him that in that case, why is Israel targeting populated areas in Lebanon? Why is Israel targeting North Gaza? For the past 20 plus days, North Gaza, well over 1,000 people have been targeted, maimed and killed by the IDF, purposefully, mainly women and children, populated areas, and the areas have been starved. We know 96% of the entire Gaza has been starved from food, from basic human rights of food entering that occupied territory. So these American hypocrites who come out and say that Iran is targeting populated areas in IDF occupied Palestine, they should be asking Benjamin Netanyahu, why is the IDF indiscriminately targeting populated areas within Beirut, Lebanon, and Gaza, and even Yemen, where the strikes have been carried out by Western allies of what is referred to as Israel. This is the double speak of these politicians. Similarly, Joe Biden, and remember, Joe Biden doesn't speak for himself. His speeches are typed out for him. He says this is the end in reference to this. So he said, it looks like they didn't hit anything other than military targets. Well, if the IDF supposedly is only targeting military targets with these strikes on Iran, why are they not targeting military targets within Lebanon and Gaza? Israel acts with impunity in Gaza. To date, we know of well over 40,000 people have been killed. That is what is accounted for by some statistics. And remember, these are regarded as unpeople in the West. What is this term unpeople? It's in reference to these brown people who die across the world, brown and black people mainly, sometimes white people also, like in Bosnia and other places. When they die, they have no names. They never give a name. They will just say, these Western reporters, these journalists, mainly white journalists, sometimes they can have a brown and black face reading off the news. They will just say, today 400 Palestinians have died, and the news will be read out very quickly. But when it comes to one white person dying, or a person who is a kafir, whether it's an Israeli Jew or anyone else, they will go into the name, the age of the person, where he died. There will be empathy and sympathy. Not that we necessarily want their sympathy, but we just need to recognize the double speak and the hypocrisy of the power structure. In previous times, this was associated with color. People made it a thing of black and white. Then some people tried making it a thing of social class difference. That you have the rich and the poor, the divide between the rich and the poor. Some people make it an ideological difference. But we make it the difference between kufr and iman, a kafir and a mu'min, an unbeliever and a believer. That how they refer to the believers who believe in the Quran and Allah and Sayyiduna Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and those who are with the power, the kafir power structure, the global kafir power structure, whether they have brown or black skin or white skin, the mindset is kafir. Or you have the munafiq mindset, those who pretend to display Islam but they have no Islam, like some of the rulers. So what Iran's mission to the UN said on Saturday is that Iraqi airspace is under the occupation, command and control of the US military. Conclusion, the US complicity in this crime is certain. So this was posted on X by the Iran UN mission. Now, of course, US complicity goes without saying. It goes without saying. As I said, and I say this to all the citizens of the United States of America, a very simple message. To all the citizens of the United States of America, our British foreign policy is controlled by the USA, especially post World War II. That accounts for our government, irrelevant to which government is seated in parliament, it will always follow the foreign policy of the United States of America. But what is up with your government? Why is your government always following the policy of the Jewish state? Why is the United States following this policy of the Jewish state? Why does the United States not have its own autonomous foreign policy? We know why Britain doesn't. You need to take to account your own government, because the government of the United States is leading the way for Britain and other countries across the world. But who controls the foreign policy of the United States of America? It cannot be simply that AIPAC pressures every single president to the degree that we believe. There is clearly an oligarchy, a financial oligarchy that controls the United States of America and its foreign policy. So the initial assessment and the initial reaction here in Tehran indicates that maybe a series of significant reaction, a direct action against Israel was not as likely. This was initially. But what they added is that some sort of response from Iran should be expected. So the fears that Iran and the US would be drawn into a regional war due to Israel's actions against Iran, of course, have increased. And this has also increased due to the airstrikes that are being carried out in Lebanon. So what we observe in Lebanon now is that Benjamin Netanyahu is carrying out with immunity, without any accountability, what he carried out in Gaza for the past 1 year. He is carrying out the same operations in Lebanon. Now, what is the end goal? Initially, if you remember, at the beginning of this current war, after post-October 7th, I mentioned the attempt to genocide and ethnically cleanse Gaza of Palestinians, force them, evict them out of Gaza. That was attempted, but the majority of the people of Gaza are unable to leave Gaza because the Rafah crossing is closed by the Egyptian authorities, as well as the determinants of the Palestinian people not to allow another Nakba, the forceful evacuation of the Palestinian people in 1948 and 1949. So Israel has no clear guidelines. The cabinet of the Israeli government does not actually have any clear goals it does not have any demarcated goals and objectives. It changes its plans every so often. So when they were unable to fulfill that objective, what it seems, according to some analysts now, is that they are making Gaza and Lebanon so unlivable by destroying it to such a degree that Hamas and Hezbollah will be unable to revive themselves in any near future. So if they were planning to actually annex Gaza and South Lebanon, they would bomb it in accordance to the level that it is still livable. Now, Ben Gavir and other cabinet members of the current war government, they have said unequivocally that they would want to make Gaza into settlements. Of course, according to the Kafir international law, that would be illegal. For us, the entire state of Israel on Palestinian soil, on Muslim soil, is illegal itself. We do not recognize the entity. But making settlements in Gaza would be illegal according to international Kafir law. So, if the objective of some of the right wing within the Knesset and the current war cabinet is to make Gaza into illegal settlements, that cannot be fulfilled with the current occupation or with the current bombings that are occurring in Gaza and South Lebanon, because they are making the land unlivable, making it totally rubble. It will take years and years to rebuild Gaza and to rebuild South Lebanon in accordance with the policy of the current IDF terrorists. Additionally, the Blinken and other Americans attempt to differentiate between Lebanon and Gaza. What they do is that they say that Hezbollah can have a ceasefire, Lebanon can have a ceasefire, but they are not mentioning that in line with a ceasefire in Gaza itself. There was even fake news that Hezbollah has agreed to a ceasefire for Lebanon, and then Hezbollah clarified afterwards that they have not agreed to a ceasefire if there is no ceasefire in Gaza itself, because the actions of Hezbollah are based upon a ceasefire within Gaza itself. Also, what you may have noticed was that there was strikes, a Hezbollah strike on the house of Benjamin Netanyahu. So Hezbollah is able to penetrate the air defense of the IDF, and they sent in a drone to strike the house of Benjamin Netanyahu. This was an attempt to assassinate Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, before I go into that, we will be also discussing the IDF death toll and the attempt to assassinate Benjamin Netanyahu. But before we do that, I will take some questions, insha'Allah ta'ala. Someone asks, I live in the USA in a remote city. Is it permissible to consume kosher meat? I would avoid kosher meat, not because of kosher meat not being halal, because you would not want your meat being slaughtered by a Zionist. And unless you find out that these particular Jews are not Zionists. Someone asks, what do you make of the new resistance group that emerged from Saudi Arabia? That was fake news. So what people did is they took footage of Iraqi resistance groups and other resistance groups, and they placed fake footage as being a new resistance group in Saudi Arabia. It's fake news. Someone asks, what is the concept of 40 Abdals in Damascus, in Sham? Like, what's their roles in the current affairs? Here we have faith and belief that awliya of Ummah work and rule. The Abdal are people, are Zuhad and Ubbad. They worship Allah. They do dua for the Ummah. So their dua has an effect. Their dua is effective. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala safeguards the people of Asham through the presence of Abdal. That doesn't mean that there's no conflict in the region or there is no disaster. It means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala safeguards them. Someone asked, we say Palestine will be free, but it's been 75 years. Why is it different now? Will it take another 75 years? The answer is no. It's different now because in the past you had the movement of Gamal Abdel Nasser, which was Arab National Socialism, which failed due to those Egyptian strikes on the entity in 1967 and the retreat of Jordan. We lost Al-Quds al-Sharif, we lost Jerusalem, we lost Al-Masjid al-Aqsa. There was no response from the Muslim world. The Jews were frightened. The Israeli Jews were frightened of a response from the Muslim world in 1967, but the Muslim world did not respond. What occurred after 1987 was more of an Islamic resistance on the name of Al-Islam. It grew post-2000. And post-2006, the number of Hufadh al-Quran increased in Gaza, memorizers of the Quran. I met one of Yasser Arafat's former bodyguards, and he said to me, and this was in Jerusalem, he said to me that while with the PLO, they would not pray their salah, they would not recite the Quran, there was no Islam in the resistance. But post Sheikh Ahmed Yasin, the youngsters, they increased their salah, prayer, they recited the Quran, they adopted Islam in practical terms. And that makes a major difference to the nature of the resistance. Assalamu alaikum. What constitutes a valid boycott target? Seems that there are too many people just naming random companies to boycott. You target 5. You concentrate the boycotts on 5. And then what happens is when you target the 5 major corporations, you will have an actual effective boycott. Someone asks, the greater Israel, is it in the Quran? They will not achieve their greater Israel. What is mentioned in Al-Quran Al-Kareem is لَتُفْسِدُنَّ فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَّتَيْنِ. لَتُفْسِدُنَّ فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَّتَيْنِ. You shall cause corruption in the earth twice. And some of the ulama, they dispute when were these 2 corruptions. Some of them say the first corruption was in the time of Bukht Nasr, known as Nebuchadnezzar, and they dispute the second time. Many ulama, they come out with different views. Al-Imam Mutawalli al-Sha'rawi, he believes it's the current occupation, while other ulama mention other opinions. But Shaykh Abdul Rahman Hassan Habannaka, rahimahullah, he mentions that he is uncertain of when is this particular occupation. So, inshallah, we will resume with regard to the attempt on Benjamin Netanyahu's life. Now, what happened? There's a question here. Someone from Manchester, Sheikh, people claim that Hamas is a creation of Israel and was funded in an effort against Arafat. What is the response? The response to that is Gaza, firstly, was occupied by Egypt. Post 1948, Egypt entered Gaza. By 1967, under the rule of Gamal Abdel Nasser, Egypt was defeated. They retreated from Gaza. When they retreat, Shaykh Ahmed Yasin, rahimahullah, he finds a charitable organization. That charitable organization was permitted to function under occupation, under Israeli occupation. The charitable organization was permitted to be active. So they did not place many restrictions on the charitable works of that organization from 1967 to 1987. That is the period of time when the Ikhwan al-Muslimin and Hamas, which was, it was not named Hamas at the time, they were able to network in the region within Palestine. They had a popular support amongst the Palestinian people. This is the period of time that people who despise Ikhwan al-Muslimin and despise Hamas, they say it's an Israeli creation, in the sense that Israel propped it up to undermine the PLO. It is true that Israel permitted the charitable organization to be active to undermine, their purpose was to undermine the PLO. But in reality, the PLO undermined itself. How? The PLO undermined itself with its weak Oslo Accords in 1993, where we had the first Intifada in 1987, the result of which was the Oslo Accords. But Yasser Arafat and the people around Yasser Arafat, their weak politics left the Palestinians in a weaker position. It was not Hamas that undermined Yasser Arafat, it was his own negotiations. Because from 1993 up to 2000, the Palestinians lost over 40,000 acres. That's post Oslo Accords. So what the claim is that from 1967 to 1987, Israel propped up Hamas. This is false. It's how you frame something. The correct framing is that Shaykh Ahmed Yasin was permitted to be active within occupied Gaza and occupied Palestine for his charitable organization. Israel's objective was to undermine the PLO. Was that achieved? The answer is no. The PLO was not undermined by Hamas. The PLO was undermined by its weak politics. And currently, as we speak, we know that the PLO undermines itself when it carries out brutality against Palestinians on the behest of the occupier, on the behest of European powers. There is also breaking news that Israel has reportedly suggested not expanding its ground operation in Lebanon in exchange for an American land, air and sea blockade to prevent Hezbollah from rebuilding its capabilities. This is, of course, the Israeli Channel 12. And Gallant, the Israeli Minister of Defense, is reported to have said the situation has become worse. There's more open fronts, a higher number of wounded and killed soldiers, so we are in need of more soldiers. And Israel's Minister of Finance, he has broke down crying regarding how many soldiers and settlers have been killed, and says that his party is paying a disproportionate price for its share of the population. Now, some people say the reason for the mention of the reason why this is being said is in order to undermine the authority of Bibi, Benjamin Netanyahu. What they say is that the opposition parties within the Knesset are exaggerating the number of IDF dead in order to undermine the authority of Benjamin Netanyahu. Whether there is truth in this or not needs to be verified, but what we do know, and many people that I have discussed this with, I have reiterated that Gaza is enclosed. Gaza does not have an international community present. Gaza does not have embassies. Gaza does not have an airport. Gaza does not have access. So when IDF soldiers are killed in Gaza, they could potentially hide the number of wounded and dead IDF soldiers. Why the Jewish Israeli media, and I utilize the word Jewish in reference to the international Jewish Zionist communities across the world, majority of the Jews are Zionist, why they place restrictions on the number of dead is in order not to be demoralized. Because when you are demoralized, you cannot fight. So for a year, we've had a block on the number of dead, even though Hamas was releasing videos regularly demonstrating Hamas fighters destroying Israeli tanks. Tanks perhaps made in the United States of America with the American taxpayers' money. And then when they would destroy those tanks, the Israelis would downplay that by saying that the soldier in the tank is not dead. But there are literally dozens and dozens of videos demonstrating tanks being destroyed by Hamas fighters. So the number of Israeli dead is not clear. And what Gallant has said is not all objectives can be achieved from military operations alone. Power is not the essence of everything. He says, Gallant, to realize our moral and ethical duty to bring our hostages home, we will have to make painful concessions. This was reported earlier today. Painful concessions. There is a clear split within the war cabinet. Now, what is reported with regard to Bibi is that the Prime Minister's office has requested NIS 2 million, which is $530,000. $530,000 from the state treasury to undertake security upgrades at Benjamin Netanyahu's private Caesarea home. So this man has requested $500,000 US from the treasury for security of his private home in Caesarea. How is Benjamin like Yahya Sinwar? They are not the same. Yahya Sinwar stayed amongst the people. He died fighting for his cause. While Benjamin Netanyahu, he seeks over $500,000 for security. Why? After it was hit by a Hezbollah drone last weekend, and which the IDF refers to an assassination attempt. And also, what is mentioned, and by the way, this is reported on their Jewish websites, the Times of Israel. The Times of Israel. What is mentioned is that general repairs on the house will be made through a compensation claim through the property tax division of the finance ministry. Separately, the Ynet news site reported the total price tag for such upgrades is expected to reach between 8 million, so $790,000 to $2.1 million. Upgrades to Netanyahu's house. Netanyahu and his wife Sarah were not in Caesarea during the attack, and there were no reports of injuries. That is what is claimed, even though as soon as his house was attacked, what happened was that there were no initial reports. So there were rumors that they were in the house but not injured and were whisked away swiftly to Jerusalem to bunkers. Because why do they go to places in Jerusalem? The reason for that is because they know that the Muslim resistance groups do not target Jerusalem. That is why they make bunkers in the city of Jerusalem. So, what is mentioned, hours after the October 19th drone attack, Netanyahu said in a statement, "The agents of Iran who tried to assassinate me and my wife today made a bitter mistake." Now this man, Netanyahu, a war criminal, a human devil, he is very vengeful. And he says with regard to Iran that they have made a bitter mistake. He said the attack would not deter him from continuing the war, and that anyone who harmed Israelis would pay a heavy price. And this is why many Jewish people on Twitter, on X, are boasting of the young thousands and tens of thousands of children that have died. There are Jews on X boasting that you do not mess with Jews. Why do you not mess with Jews? Because then they kill children. That is the reason that they are boasting. And many of them are dying, and in their funerals they are saying things like that soldiers went to Gaza to kill more Palestinians, women and children, indiscriminately. So the details of this are what is it states days after the attack, the IDF cleared for publication the fact that the blast, and you remember, you cannot believe Israeli propaganda. They said cracked glass in a bedroom window but did not penetrate the home because of reinforced glass and other protections. So if the man has reinforced glass and other protections, why does he demand hundreds and thousands more from the treasury? And what else is mentioned is 3 drones were launched from Lebanon in the attack targeting the Prime Minister's private residence. 2 were intercepted over Rash Hankira and Naharaya, respectively, and the 3rd exploded in the central seaside town of Caesarea, known for its high-end villas and Roman ruins. So it states expenses occurred from the maintenance work to the Prime Minister's private residence are covered by the state treasury. If the renovations are found to be necessary to the Prime Minister's ability to adequately carry out his or her work, if this is not the case, then the renovations are considered an improvement to the home, and the Premier is responsible for covering the cost. The Netanyahu family home has frequently made headlines due to expensive repairs, argued by some to have been unnecessary, that have been shouldered by the state over the years. So the citizens are paying for the expenses of the home of Netanyahu. But what other ramifications did this have? It had that the cabinet this war cabinet, these warmongers, their meetings have been moved to secure underground locations in the wake of drone attacks on the Prime Minister's home. Now, so many people, they ask the question, they say things like, the solution is a two-state solution. Well, if that were the case, then the counter question should be, why is the Knesset, 99% of the Knesset, which is the Israeli Jewish parliament of occupied Palestine, why do they vote against a two-state solution? The Jews are against a two-state solution. In fact, the Jewish community does not condemn the IDF. You have the head rabbi of the UK. Where has he condemned IDF war crimes? The counter question, they say, is where is the condemnation for Hamas? Well, the response to that is many Muslims and states, Muslim states, have condemned Hamas. Even though they have condemned Hamas, where is your condemnation of the IDF chief rabbi? Where is your condemnation of killing of children? Come out and explain Judaism to the people, that Judaism condemns killing of children, that the Torah condemns the killing of children, or does it? Or the Talmud condemns the killing of children. Where is this condemnation from the chief rabbi of the UK, the chief rabbi of Germany, the chief rabbi of the United States of America, the chief rabbis across the world? Where is their condemnation of indiscriminate killing? To date, there has been no condemnation. And those who shared dinners with the chief rabbi, the likes of Abdullah bin Bayya, there has been no condemnation from them either. Abdullah bin Bayya, who normalized, they call it normalization, I have another name for it. It begins with a B. I have another name for it. Where is their condemnation? Because the chief rabbi said that Israel is a entity for peace. This is how he was quoted when meeting with Abdullah bin Bayya. So the cabinet met on Monday in an underground secure location. Underground. So Hezbollah's attack on, one of the people says, why would there be a condemnation? It's a war. Thank you very much. That what you say should apply to Muslims then. When you expect Muslims to condemn, do not expect Muslims to condemn. Similarly, Muslims do condemn killing of children. Our religion prohibits killing of children. We do condemn any killing of children. Does your religion permit you to kill children? Does it permit you to kill children? Does Judaism permit people to kill children? And if it does not, then what do you say about those who permit killing of children in the name of Judaism? Do you condemn that? That is the response to the one who says that why should there be condemnation? It is war. In war, we as Muslims condemn Muslims if they kill children in the name of Islam. And even though there were many lies after October the 7th that over 40 children were beheaded in the Zionist media, there was, so someone says Judaism allows killing of children. If you check Samuel 15, well, the chief rabbi needs to clarify these things, because there are people saying that Judaism condones the killing of children. We make it very clear that the Quran actually condemns. And there is also the question of where is ISIS, and where is Al-Qaeda, and where are the white helmets, and where is FSA? in fighting Israel? Where are these groups? Where are the white helmets helping, at least helping Lebanon? Remember the white helmets in Syria. Why are the white helmets not present in Beirut now as we speak? Why are the white helmets not in southern Lebanon? These are important questions. But the cabinet met on Monday in an underground secure location in Jerusalem's governmental complex and not at the Prime Minister's office due to security concerns at the recommendation of Shin Bet. So the Shin Bet is the local Jewish security within occupied Palestine. And then you have the international intelligence service of Mossad. And of course, there is intelligence sharing of Mossad with other intelligence agencies across the world, including Muslim governments. So the Shin Bet is advising the war cabinet to hold its meetings underground. And what was mentioned, the decision was made due to an increase in threats against senior Israeli officials, and in light of last week's Hezbollah drone attack on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's home. So one drone from South Lebanon shook the foundations of Bibi's villa. It shook the foundations of Bibi's other things as well. One drone from South Lebanon. One drone. You are utilizing your F-35 jets to strike children, you child killer. And one drone has shook you and your government. But when the adhab of Allah will come on you, like it came upon Ariel Sharon, and the world witnessed that Ariel Sharon, the war criminal, when he fell into a coma and was in a coma for years and years and died a disgraceful death, that will also happen to you, insha'Allah ta'ala. Mr. Bibi. Bibi is a woman's name in Pakistan, by the way. Bibi. So, what is stated is that government sources told news outlets that the move would not be a one-time event, and the cabinet meetings are expected to be held in changing locations for the near future due to the same security concerns. Go and check Surah Al-A'raf, verse 1, ayah number 165. وَإِذَا تَأَذَّنَ رَبُّكَ. Ministers were notified of the decision only in the morning and were told that their advisors would not be allowed in due to the constraints of the space. So, that is with regard to this drone attack, one drone attack that only cracked, according to the IDF, a bedroom window, didn't even penetrate the home. According to the IDF, it's frightened you to such an extent that your prime minister wants $500,000 and the entire cabinet is sitting underground in different locations. That is shameful. So, going on to other issues, one of them also is the number of IDF dead. The number of IDF dead. Before we go on to the number of IDF dead, I will take some questions, and I have something interesting as well, a report of a think tank, military think tank, with regard to the current war. We will open up, inshallah, for Q&A. Someone states we need a fatwa from ulama about Palestine, not speeches. The answer is that the fatwa is already out. The Mufti of Libya has given a fatwa. The Mufti of Tunisia has given a fatwa. Numerous ulama in Egypt have given a fatwa. Ulama of Pakistan have given a fatwa. Both the Mufti Munibur Rahman of Pakistan and Mufti Taqi Uthmani of Pakistan both have given a fatwa. You can go and consult those fatwas. The fatwas have been given across the world. Taqi Usmani represents the Deobandi ulama in Pakistan, and Mufti Munibur Rahman, the Mufti of Ahl Sunnah in Pakistan, he has given a fatwa. The ulama of Afghanistan, of Ahl Sunnah in Afghanistan, they have given a fatwa. The ulama of Libya have given a fatwa. The ulama of Tunisia have given a fatwa. How many fatwas do you want? They are written and available. Someone says, Sheikh, what is your opinion on what we should do if we encounter a World War III living here in Mozambique, Southern African region? You are in a better region. Africa, Southern Africa, or Mid Africa is one of the best places to be. Sheikh, there are many hadiths that tell us a time when the Euphrates will dry up. Or is that only information only known to Allah? That is ghaib. Only Allah knows when the Euphrates will uncover a mountain of gold. Someone asks, كثير من الناس يقولون إن حرية فلسطين ستكون قريبا. ما رأيك يا شيخ؟ رأيي أنه قريب إن شاء الله تعالى. Sheikh, the Shia consider us kuffar, so why are they helping Palestine? Is this just some excuse of trying to be the face of Islam? No, this issue is more embedded than what you think. It's a regional political issue. It actually transcends some of the sectarian issues. It's a regional issue. It concerns the indigenous people of that land, like the Lebanese. Someone states Amazon River is in drought and some rivers in Zimbabwe. So, in relation to the Euphrates River drying. Someone asked the question, someone also commented with regard to the Euphrates. They are saying the Euphrates is drying and receding, but they are not reporting. There seems to be some kind of block. But with regard to this, I would say that the Euphrates gold will be uncovered baghtatan, suddenly, when you are not expecting this. Someone says, Salam Sheikh, considering circumstances, Do you think the Muslims will ever unite before the big war? The Malhama, and which country will most likely unite the Ummah? The Malhama is post al-Mahdi. The Malhama is post al-Mahdi. So the current situation is not leading to Malhama. Malhama is post al-Mahdi according to the hadith. Someone asks, Assalamu alaikum Shaykh, is the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about the 70,000 Jews in Isfahan relevant today? The answer is no. There are some people attempting to utilize that against the Iranian government. The 70,000, 70,000 Jews of Isfahan is later in the time when Ad-Dajjal appears. That is post the current occupation, post the current, what is referred to as the State of Israel. So what seems, and some modern shuyukh have also given the same opinion, is that when the current state is demolished, many of these Jews will migrate to Isfahan, 70,000 plus, because the number has decreased from Isfahan, even though there are Jews in Isfahan even today, but the number has decreased. But perhaps post the destruction of Israel and the dismantling of Israel, they will migrate to that region. Someone asks if Jabal al-Lawz in Saudi Arabia is the actual Mount Sinai, because the part of the Israel plan, or is it a conspiracy? The answer is that the Sinai is not in the Arabian Peninsula. That's a new Christian theory. There are some American Christians who attempt to forward this claim. Someone asks, how many events left before Al-Mahdi? Are there a very small number of events left? The answer is yes, but one of the major signs before Al-Mahdi is actually the Euphrates gold. Someone says Sinai seems to be in Arabia, though. Lots of evidence, Hebrew writing and carved on rocks. That doesn't entail that it is actually Sinai. It means that there were Jewish settlements in North Arabia. There were indeed Jewish settlements in North Arabia. And perhaps later, or what these Jews currently claim is that North Arabia also belongs to Greater Israel. They believe the north of Arabia, as well as the Sinai, as well as parts of Egypt, Iraq and Syria all belong to the Jews. So now going on to before we resume Q&A, going on to the official statements with regard to the number of IDF terrorists that have been killed. And with regard to anyone who is mentioning sectarian issues on the chat, what I would like to say, anyone wanting to debate me from the sects, they know where I am. SPC Masjid. Most days 6 p.m. You can come and debate. But currently we are doing these live streams to discuss the IDF death of its terrorist soldiers, the attempt on Bibi to be assassinated, and the bombing of Iran, and the response of Iran to come. Because Khamenei has said that there will be a response. So that response will be forthcoming in the coming weeks and days. But in the meantime, the authorities named this report, by the way, was released on 8th of October, that what was mentioned on 8th of October was the authorities naming 772 soldiers, 68 police officers killed in Gaza war. This is how the report reads. The Israel Defense Forces have published names of 771 soldiers, officers and reservists, several dozens of whom are local security officers, killed during the ongoing war. By the way, they call them local security officers. What they do is they kill Palestinian children, use violence on young kids, teenagers. They will have guns, the Palestinians will have stones. What is stated is, this is how they write: they killed during the ongoing war with Palestinian terrorists. That's how they word it. Since October the 7th, more than 302 of them on the border with the Gaza Strip, and at least 361 during a ground offensive. So 361 during ground offensive in the Hamas run territory and amid operations on the border. And then what is mentioned, meanwhile, the Israeli police listed 58 officers that were killed on the Gaza border. An officer killed during a hostage rescue operation in the Strip. 6 officers killed in terror attacks in Israel. This is how they word it, and the West Bank. And 3 other officers killed during clashes with terror operatives in West Bank raids. This is how they word it. But in reality, they are the terrorists. So then they say approximately 1,200 people were killed as Hamas, meaning on October the 7th. But they don't mention, what they do not mention is how many of the IDF actually killed the Israelis, how many Jews were killed by IDF. When they have tactics, the IDF, where they indiscriminately bomb places in order to gain control. Then what is mentioned, 27 soldiers and a local security officer have also been killed in attacks claimed by Lebanon's Hezbollah and allied groups on northern, and I'm removing the word terror, on northern Israel since the fighting started. 34 soldiers were killed during ground operations in Lebanon. 10 soldiers were killed in attacks in the West Bank and occupied Palestine. They say Israel. 3 soldiers were killed during a counter-terrorism operation in the West Bank. They say counter-terrorism operation, but in reality, the people in the West Bank are not even armed. 2 soldiers were killed in a drone attack from Iraq. So Iraqi militias, they killed 2 soldiers. And then they say the military list also includes a soldier killed by friendly fire in the West Bank. That's when Jew on Jew crime. So previously in the media, they would have black on black crime. They use these terms, black on black crime. But when it comes to a white man killing a white man, they won't say white man on white crime. In this case, Jew on Jew crime. They won't say Jew on Jew crime. They'll say black on black crime. A soldier killed due to malfunctioning ammunition on the Lebanon border. 2 soldiers, remember, some of these reservists cannot even fire a gun correctly. 2 soldiers killed in a tank accident in northern Israel, and a number of other deadly incidents amid the war, but not directly related to the fighting. Now, then they have pictures of some of these IDF dead. They have their pictures. There are some pictures here. This guy, Colonel Ihsan Daqsa. Colonel Ihsan Daqsa, this middle guy, he's 41 years old, the commander of the 401st Armored Brigade from Daliat al-Karmel. Daqsa was killed during fighting in northern Gaza's Jabaliyah. In Jabaliyah, this Ibn al-Haram, he is Daruzi. He's a Daruzi. This man, he was killed recently. And what they did in Jabaliyah, now in Gaza, in North Gaza, for 25 plus days now, they have been killing women and children indiscriminately. And then he goes in an armored car, this man goes in an armored car, and he's killed with a few of his comrades. And what was written on the bomb? هذه بضاعتكم ردت إليكم. These are your goods returned to you. Why was that written on the bomb? Because the bomb was an American bomb, unexploded American bomb. An unexploded American bomb in Gaza. The people of Gaza, they write on it, the fighters in Gaza, they write, هذه بضاعتكم ردت إليكم. These are your goods returned to you. That American bomb then went and killed this man. So then they list all the IDF soldiers that have died. These are their names, because they attempt to humanize them. They humanize them. They do not humanize the Palestinian children or any of the children that are killed in war. They are not to be humanized because they are unpeople. They are not deemed as human beings. They are deemed as inferior according to the Talmud. They are deemed as being devils in the guise of human beings. That is the actual concept that they have. So the authorities have named 772 soldiers. And remember, since October the 7th, in engagements in Gaza, 361 they have named have died. That's 1 for every day minimum. 1 for every day. This is official report. But how many thousands have been injured and maimed? And how many more are left to die? Many of them will die, IDF soldiers in engagements with the Lebanese and with the Palestinians. But at the same time, we have propaganda being peddled. That propaganda is peddled. There's one propaganda, for instance, here, a propaganda piece published on October 28th. Saudi outlet reports growing desertion amongst Hezbollah, they say terrorists, as IDF ramps up military operations in Lebanon. This is a propaganda piece ascribing this to Saudi Arabia. But when you read the piece, they say, for instance, Hezbollah are increasingly deserting their units, etc. But then within the same report, they say the report stressed, however, that Hezbollah's elite Radwan forces are still carrying out quality operations and ambushes, which are causing high casualty numbers among the Israeli defense forces. Over the weekend, the IDF announced that 5 reservists had been killed fighting Hezbollah during the previous week's fighting, 10 IDF soldiers were killed in Lebanon. So, and then they cry regarding what? The IDF launched Operation Northern Arrows on October the 1st, 2024, in an effort to return 60,000 displaced Israeli civilians to their northern homes after a year of relentless Hezbollah missile attacks on civilians. So then they have experts, Jewish and Arab so-called experts, giving a negative analysis with regard to Hezbollah. So, moving on to something else which was interesting is regarding Rusi. Now, some of you, if you are aware of Rusi is a think tank, a military British think tank. So this is a think tank from our home country of United Kingdom. And they have a commentary piece. This commentary piece states Israel is losing, but Netanyahu won't back down on his war aims. And it's written by an Albert Wolf. So shortly we will be going through this piece with regard to Israel losing, but Netanyahu won't back down on his war aims. Before we go on to that, we will have, insha'Allah ta'ala, a few questions. We'll take a few questions, and then we will continue with this piece released by Rusi. Someone asks, Sheikh, what's your view of Sheikh Abdul Sattar Khan Niazi's book on unity? The answer is, it's a great book. It was written in 1982. I recommended this book already with my interview with our brother Dili Hussein. When we had that interview, I mentioned that book by Abdul Sattar Khan Niazi, rahimahullah ta'ala. A great book on Muslim unity. It's the name of the book is Al-Ittihad Bain al-Muslimin. It's available in Urdu. So someone asks, what does Surah 25, ayah number 63 in the Quran mean? Doesn't this mean we shouldn't debate the likes of Sam Shim'un? Someone asks, what is the best dua we can pray for in this war? The best dua is Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. And someone else asks, can we do Qunut al-Nazila for the Palestinians? Answer is yes. So you can do Qunut al-Nazila. The Qunut al-Nazila is done at Salatul Fajr, and it's permissible for Hanafis in disasters. So our teacher, Sheikh Nuruddin Itr, rahimahullah ta'ala, he gave the fatwa in his time when he was alive, when he wrote the book I'lamul Anam, that the Muslims face constant bombardment and disasters, and therefore reciting the Qunut al-Nazila is permissible. Someone asks, Sheikh, is the Euphrates gold the only sign for the Mahdi, or are there more? There are a few other signs, but the main one is the gold of the Euphrates. Someone asks, could it mean other than gold? That interpretation, some attempted to give that interpretation. They attempted to say it's the black gold, meaning oil. But I responded to that in my book, is Navigating the End of Time, and in multiple uh, lectures I addressed the issue of the gold and black gold. Someone says, do I need to repeat my salah if I always have doubt about wiping my head or saying opening takbir after completing salah? The answer is no. Someone asked, do you recommend us to read Hizbul Bahar for the Palestinians? The answer is yes. Hizbul Bahar is a great wird book of Al-Imam Abu al-Hasan al-Shadhili rahimahullah ta'ala. So if you take idhan from a sheikh to read, it's even better. You take the wird from a Sufi sheikh to recite the Hizbul Bahar. Inshallah, we will continue what I wanted to cover in this last segment, and then we will have one final Q&A, is this Rusi report. What the Rusi report mentions, and remember there is also an update with regard to the entity, what is known as Israel. It banned the UN organization known as UNRWA, UNWRA, which provides food to the Palestinians. It's a humanitarian UN organization, but it has been banned because they deem it as a terrorist, meaning this UN organization that distributes food and aid, they deem it as assisting terrorists. And of course, what is very clear from the Jewish state is that they deem all Palestinians terrorists, whether children or the vulnerable equally. So Rusi is a think tank. This think tank has a report by Albert Wolf which states Israel is losing, but Netanyahu won't back down on his war aims. Now, what it mentions is Israel's war aims are overambitious. Its war aims are overambitious. Without narrowing its goals in Gaza and Lebanon, it risks military overstretch and political fallout, which has already happened, weakening its strategic position. Of course, the report will not mention that Benjamin Netanyahu has messianic goals and objectives, as I covered in our previous live stream. What is mentioned, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government has plainly spelled out what Israel wants to achieve: recover the hostages, secure the borders with Gaza, and destroy Hamas. A fourth aim has been added: Israelis forced to evacuate their homes in the north by Hezbollah's bombing have to be able to return. Failure to achieve war aims in Gaza. Israel is not achieving its war aims against Hamas. First, it has only obtained a handful of the hostages. Some have been killed. The fates of many others are still unknown. Second, Hamas has not been destroyed. Destruction of a terrorist organization is difficult to measure. Some point to leadership decapitation. However, as Jenna Jordan has pointed out, attriting terrorist leaders seldom brings about their organization's collapse. Factors such as popular support, ideology, and organizational structure play bigger roles in deciding these groups' fates. When Israel assassinated Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, for example, Yahya Sinwar, the alleged mastermind behind 7th October attacks, succeeded Haniyeh. It's not clear what price Hamas paid for Haniyeh's death. So, what he further states: failure to carry out public threats damages a country's reputation for resolve and reveals a leader's inability to manage a foreign and military policy. Further down, it mentions, while it has regained control over some border crossings, the underground infrastructure that has allowed Hamas to engage in smuggling weapons and carrying out attacks is still in place. Overthrowing Hamas will not make Israel safer. So, further down, he states, as in the case, and this is an interesting point, as in the case with the Taliban in Afghanistan, regime change will not eliminate Hamas's membership. Hamas's members could go into hiding, opportunistically capitalizing on grievances, from Palestinian anger over the new government's inefficiency to misbehavior by Israeli settlers, or they could stir up trouble whenever it suited them, or their foreign patrons. Remember that eventually Taliban took all of Afghanistan. So prior to the fall of the Taliban in 2001, October 2001, Taliban only controlled around 90% of Afghanistan. Now Taliban controls all of Afghanistan. 23 years later, Taliban is empowered, stronger than ever. America has left Afghanistan because sustaining military presence in a foreign country, it takes strains on the economy and the military efficiency of any government. So then what they mention is Lebanon, the graveyard of Israeli governments. He states, Netanyahu wants to avoid another decade plus quagmire in Lebanon. There was Menachem Begin, who was the prime minister of Israel in 1982, and he was ordered by the United States of America to leave Lebanon eventually, but he was in a quagmire for 10 years. As much as he wants to steer clear from being seen as capitulating or backing down against Hezbollah, like Ehud Barak or Ehud Almat, after having initially enunciated limited aims in the fight against Hezbollah, however, questions remain over whether a plan for the day after Hezbollah is defeated even exists. Now, as I mentioned, that the man does not have any plans. The war cabinet is all over the place. So, what he mentions is two variables stand in the way of a potential deal. Two variables. Netanyahu could face a similar political fate to Olmert if he does not follow through on his threats against Hezbollah. What is he referring to? During 2006 war, Olmert issued a series of explicit public threats demanding the group to return the Israeli soldiers it had captured and disarm, or else face severe military punishment until it capitulated. What happened? Olmert subsequently backed down. And what happened? His approval ratings collapsed as a result, rendering him a lame duck for the rest of his term in office. So he had a failure in carrying out public threats. And the second is Naim Qasim, the Deputy Secretary of General of Hezbollah, and now the leader, has signaled a willingness to go along with the Lebanese parliamentary speaker and leader of the Shia Amal party efforts to reach a ceasefire. So this suggested that the group was walking away from its early commitment to only negotiate once a ceasefire had been reached between Israel and Hamas. But later today, Hezbollah has made it very clear, unless there is a ceasefire in Gaza, there will not be a ceasefire in Lebanon. So what he states, the folly of overconfidence may be feeding yet Netanyahu's desire to expand Israel's war aims in Lebanon, having successfully delivered several blows against Hezbollah senior leadership. So this report, written by Albert Wolf, is found on the Rusi website, which it makes interesting reading because Rusi is a British think tank on military and war. Some of you may be aware of Rusi, but inshallah we will open up for one final Q&A, and this depends on your engagement and how interesting you make the Q&A, and of course what people are eagerly awaiting for now is Iran's strike on occupied Palestine, on the Israelis. Someone asks with regard to the 5 main Zionist companies that should be boycotted. On the list you have McDonald's, and you have Coca-Cola, you have Costa Coffee, you have Starbucks. These are 4, and some may add Johnson's and other companies. So there are 5 specific companies that should be boycotted. Someone asks, do you think that the Mahdi appearance will be in the next 15 to 20 years? If you're familiar of my methodology, you will know that we do not fall into predictions, and we stick to the hadith and the signposts in the hadith. Generally, anyone who makes predictions, they fall into a failure. With regard to people calling me out for a debate, They will be approached in the appropriate time. Do not worry. Someone asks, can we listen to Ahmed Deedat? The answer is yes. Ahmed Deedat has many beneficial lectures. In fact, his lectures on Palestine are recommended. And he has a book also, Arabs and Israel, Conflict or Conciliation. Someone asks, do you know of any Shadhiliya sheikhs in New York City and New Jersey? The answer is no, but you can ask Sheikh Shadi al Misri, he will be able to inform you. Someone asks, he states, it wouldn't surprise me as many people have dreams about the Mahdi's imminent emergence. Message from Allah. I would say do not be beguiled or misled by dreams. Dreams can easily mislead people. Some people they misread dreams. Thoughts about Bashar al-Assad, I think he's Sufyani. The answer is Bashar al-Assad is a brutal dictator, no doubt. He has committed crimes against the Syrian people. But the objective to remove him from the West and NATO should not be trusted. The removal of Bashar at the hands of NATO should not be trusted. All the brutal dictators need to be removed. There's no doubt on this. But it needs to be done organically from the Muslims themselves and not at the behest of the United States or NATO, because they have their own objectives for the removal of such regimes. So someone says, one of my groups will always stand on the truth and fight around Baytul Maqdis. So tell us, who is this Shia-Sunni? Recently we saw Shia fighting against Zionists without the help of Sunni Muslims. The response to you is this, that the group around Baytul Maqdis is Sunni and has always been Sunni. Even currently it is Sunni, because you check the history of Baytul Maqdis, all the resistance groups before Salahuddin, in the time of As-Salaf Salihun, when they fought around Al-Quds, because Al-Quds was always attacked by the Byzantine Empire. In the time of the Salaf, it was defended by Sunni Muslims. That continued into the time of Salahuddin and Nur-Din Zengi, and then into the time of the Ottomans. And even now, as we speak, the people around Al-Quds are Sunni. Yes, they have alliances with Shia now, at this particular time. But that does not mean that the Ta'ifatul Mansura is Shia. Ta'ifatul Mansura is the Sunnis, even now. Even though the Shia have aligned themselves with the Sunnis. And we are not against this alignment. People who are against this alignment now currently are causing fitna. Someone says opinion on Saudi and Iran naval joint operations. This is commendable. Why should Iran and Saudi Arabia go to war? Iran and Saudi Arabia should not go to war. There should never be civil war in Saudi Arabia. As Muslims, we want peace in our countries. Whether that is Saudi Arabia, whether that is Iran, whether that is Syria or Egypt or Turkey or Pakistan, we do not want civil war. Whether that civil war is Shia and Sunni, meaning sectarian war, or whether it's political warfare. In the past, Yemen had disgraceful wars between communists and other Muslims, people who are joining communism in Yemen. So there should be peace between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Why should there be war? There should be peace between Saudi Arabia and Yemen. Someone asks, official thoughts on Umar Baloch and Imran Hussein saying that Zionists are Ya'juj and Ma'juj and that will now take over the Middle East area and only solution is to form Khilafah. Well, the solution is to form a Khilafah. The solution is to form a Khilafah. Will they succeed in forming Greater Israel? The answer is no. Are the current Jews Ya'juj and Ma'juj? The answer is no. I've responded to that in another live stream. You can refer to that. And Imran Hussein has multiple times refused to meet. Someone asks, why are ulama afraid of speaking of the Khilafah? Well, you need to ask those ulama who do not speak regarding the Khilafah. But what I would say is refer you to my book, Intellectual Intifada. Intellectual Intifada was my book I wrote before October the 7th on the Khilafah. So refer to that book. Someone asks, Shaykh, if I was in my last rak'ah in salah and I had read tashahhud but then I broke my wudu, does it count? The answer is yes. So in the Hanafi fiqh, if you sit down in the last cycle rak'ah, you sat long enough to recite your tashahhud, you finish your tashahhud up to Abdu wa Rasuluh, then your wudu breaks, you invalidate your wudu, your salah is done. Someone asks, where can we buy the book? Amazon? The answer is it is on Amazon, but I would recommend you to buy the book on Madani Propagation Preston. So you go on Google and you type Madani Propagation Preston and you look for the book on that website, you will find the book. Someone asks, is it not a sin, Ya Shaykh? Are ulama in Pakistan not guilty for it? Only Ustad Khadim Hussein was active. The answer is yes. They need to address the issue of governance. The issue of Islamic governance and the Khilafah needs to be discussed. It's an issue of utmost importance. Someone asks, with regard to Bashar al-Assad, is from Bani Kalb. Yes, he is. He is from Bani Kalb because the Nusayriya are Arabs from Bani Kalb, and the Sufyani akhwaluhu min Kalb. His maternal uncle's maternal family will be from Bani Kalb. But does that mean Bashar is the Sufyani? The answer is no. The map will change. The current map of the Middle East will change. There are pending wars, imminent wars. There will be the Gold War also. Someone says that a certain person said that the hadith on the Mahdi are not sahih and most likely invented by Shia. Is this true? The answer is that the hadith on al-Mahdi, there are over 80 authentic narrations. 80 narrations, not authentic, between Sahih, Hasan and Da'if. But this person also rejects hadith on the descent of Isa alayhi salam, which is narrated by 28 Sahaba. 28 Sahaba mention the descent of Isa alayhi salam. So he rejects that mass transmitted hadith. But many ulama, they compile those hadith. You individually study the chains of narrations of those hadith. You will find that there are many authentic hadith on the Mahdi, as well as the descent of Isa alayhi salam. Someone says, Sheikh, did you get in touch with Uthman bin Farouk on the debate? He called out the Sufis. Yes, I did get in touch with Uthman bin Farouk of America. We had a discussion, and he was offended by me calling him boy. So he also clarified that he did not call out the Sufis. He did not call out myself or anyone for a debate. So we agreed to meet privately and discuss. He did not call out Ash'aris for debate. So this is false information. Based upon that, we made up on a personal level and decided to discuss Aqidah issues privately. He has refused to debate publicly because he never called me out publicly in the first place. So people should be careful on what information they relay. However, I was contacted by a prominent Salafi Sheikh today by someone that there is a prominent Salafi Sheikh who wants to have a debate. And what I said is bring it forth, inshallah. But considering what is happening in the world, the Muslim world today, I was surprised that this Salafi still wants to debate. So I said, come to the masjid, ahlan wa sahlan, you can debate me. There's no issue. You can sit down and debate. And as someone says here, the last thing we need to debate at the moment. Someone says, Sheikh, please come to Preston. I will be coming Preston soon. I've attended Preston many times. I will be coming soon at the end of December, inshaAllah ta'ala. Someone asks with regard to updates on the debate with the Qadianis. The answer is yes, the Qadianis have got back to me and I have emailed them back to finalize the date so they can finalize the date, the venue, the debater, the topic has been set. That debate will be going ahead, inshaAllah ta'ala. Someone asks for the brothers and sisters in USA, should they vote in the upcoming elections? If yes, who would be better? The answer is that I watched this absurd video of American Muslims in the United States voting for Trump, believing that Trump will put an end to wars. Unfortunately, what they should realize, it doesn't really matter who comes into power, whether it's Trump or Harris, Kamala Harris, because the American foreign policy is controlled by Israel in the first place. Whoever controls Israel controls America. That is blatantly obvious to anyone who is observing the current events. Someone asks, Sheikh, what's your opinion on this new Terrifier 3 movie, including sensitive scenes, and many Muslims are watching this? I do not watch movies, so I'm not aware of this movie. So you need to place detail on this. Someone says, we love you for the sake of Allah, lion of the Ahl Sunnah. I would say, do not call me lion. I do not approve of anyone calling me lion. I'm not a lion, I'm a human being. But if you mean lion in a metaphorical sense, then the lions are in Gaza, the lions are in Lebanon, the lions are in Yemen. Do not call me lion. The lions are in Gaza. And I wrote that in the dedication of my book to the lions, our children, the lions of Gaza and Kashmir. So do not call me lion, call the children of Gaza and Kashmir lions. Someone says, Sheikh, should I keep hope of getting married in the future, or are we too close to the time of Al-Mahdi that it would be futile? No, we are not close to the time of Al-Mahdi. I've made that clear. Get married, have children. Someone asks, Sheikh, why should I choose the Hanafi school above others because I'm trying to choose a madhab to formally study? The answer is that choose the madhab of your teachers and the practical madhab in your area. So what is the madhab acted upon in your area, in your amongst your family, and the teachers. So if your teacher is a Shafi'i, you adopt the Shafi'i school. If he's a Hanafi, you adopt the Hanafi school. For us, all four madhabs are equal. We do not differentiate them. They are all great. Someone asks, Sheikh, can you explain more about Ash'aris and Maturidis? That, of course, requires different time. There are people spamming the live stream, so I'm unable to. Someone asks, Sheikh, to learn Urdu to study ilm, is it relevant or not? You need to learn Arabic to study ilm. Someone says, Sheikh, welcome to Hanslow once more if possible. Well, you need to extend an invitation and then I will come to Hanslow inshallah. Sheikh, how do we advise parents on Islam without them feeling disrespected? Through politeness. Did Imam Ibn Kathir Imam Ibn Kathir and other students of Ibn Taymiyyah such as Imam Dhahabi hold the same aqidah as him? The answer is they had different views to Ibn Taymiyyah with regard to the controversial issues of Ibn Taymiyyah, which is very clear from their works. So in the tafsir for Al-Imam Abu al-Fida Ismail bin Kathir rahimahullah, you find various positions where he took a divergent opinion from Ibn Taymiyyah. And similarly, the positions of Al-Imam al-Dhahabi. Someone says, Sheikh, my teacher is a Shafi'i and my family is from the Awam, but he lives in Egypt and I do not have the opportunity to study Shafi'i madhab at the moment. It's only Hanafi and Maliki and I live in New Jersey. So you choose from one of the two, Hanafi or Maliki. There's benefits in both madhabs. For instance, the Maliki school, they are lenient on foods more than the Hanafis. In the Maliki school, you could do jama', combining your prayers when you travel. But there is a difference. In the Hanafi school, for 15 days you can shorten prayers. In the Maliki school, it's limited for how long you can shorten the prayers. Even though the Maliki school is lenient on foods, the Hanafi school, the prohibitions make sense. Like the Hanafi school prohibits snakes, it prohibits snails. You cannot eat snails, but that's permitted in the Maliki school. But it makes sense why the Hanafis prohibit those animals. So in the Maliki school, you would have to, when you bathe yourself, you would have to rub your entire body. But in the Hanafi school, you would not have to rub your entire body from bathing yourself. There are these distinctions. But in the Maliki school, if you have a small container of water and impurities enter the container and you cannot see the impurities, the water is still clean. So in that sense, it's easy. But in the Hanafi school, there are rulings that are also very easy. But in the Maliki school, the sunan, rawatib, are deemed like nawafil. In the Hanafi school, the sunan, if you miss them, you become sinful. So these are considerations you need to think of before adopting a madhab, but choose the madhab of the people around you. Someone asks thoughts of Jalaluddin al-Rumi and his works. I have the Mathnawi of Al-Imam al-Rumi rahimahullah at home. I do read Sufi poetry in various languages. The Mathnawi is in Farsi, and I studied Farsi with a native Farsi speaker from Afghanistan. My Farsi is not too good, but I have studied Farsi. I have the written form of the Mathnawi. Similarly, I study the poetry of Allama Iqbal rahimahullah. I also have the poetry of other Sufi shuyukh. Someone asks, Sheikh, any Ahl Sunnah shuyukh in Somalia? Unfortunately, Najdi extremism has ruined our nation. There was Sheikh Uthman Hidayr, rahimahullah, he passed away recently. He has many beneficial books. He was from Somalia. We published some of his books. Darul Imam Yusuf al-Nabahani published some of his books. Sheikh, would you ever consider having a dialogue, discussion with Daniel Haqiqaju? Yes, why not? Sheikh, do you have any advice for teenagers who want to study ilm? The advice would be memorize Quran, learn the Arabic language. Start with those two steps. Sheikh, I want to marry with a simple nikah, but my parents want it to be expensive and involve rituals like mixed gatherings. Well, you avoid the mixed gatherings and any expenses they want to pay. Tell them that rather than spending extravagantly, why don't you save that money and give it towards my living costs, my accommodation where I might live with my wife? Give them that advice. Why do the Atharis hold Ibn Taymiyyah as the major authority in the Athari school? Do some Atharis today not take from him? The answer is Ibn Taymiyyah is a major figure in the Hanbali school. He's an authority in the Hanbali school. Some of his positions were deemed as shadh, those anomalous. Those positions are not taken. But generally, he's deemed as an authority in the Hanbali school. The Ash'aris were mixed regarding him. Some went to extreme by doing takfir of him. Others did tabdi' of him. Others praised him. And they said, we do not take his mistakes. So people had different positions towards Ibn Taymiyyah. Sheikh, what is your opinion on people who don't follow a madhab? Well, you definitely need a madhab to be practical in your deen. In order to be practical in your deen, if they say we take directly from Al-Quran wa Sunnah, then they must be learned to a degree. And if that is the case, if you are actually learned, you will realize the essential need for a madhab. Someone says, Sheikh, how can I convince my friends to believe in a hadith? They have doubts of its authenticity because of how long ago it was written. Well, the Quran was compiled and written a long time ago also. But if they mean the gap between the Prophet ﷺ and the hadith compilations, then they need to understand that the earliest hadith collections were actually in the time of the Sahaba alayhim Ridwan. The Sahaba alayhim Ridwan were the first people to compile the hadith, and then the later compilations of Al-Bukhari and Muslim, what they did is they just gathered between all the various compilations with the chains of narration. It's inshallah in the future we may hold a live stream with regard to hadith compilation and hadith authenticity. Inshallah, in the future we will hold that, and people can ask their questions with regard to hadith authenticity. Someone says, if I study the Hanafi madhab, is it possible to take a fatwa from another madhab? And if I finish my studies, do I then have to teach and give darus? Or can it be just for me to be a better Muslim? The answer is, your teachers will answer that we only take fatwa from the other madhabs based upon necessity and need. A fatwa from other madhabs is permitted with its conditions. Do you have to teach? The answer is yes, you would need to teach your children, your spouse, and the people around you. Inshallah ta'ala, a brother writes, Shaykh, it is sunnah to smile. You should smile more. Do you think us Palestinian Salafis are lions too? Or do we not count? Well, a response to you, firstly, with regard to smiling. There are a few people who are obsessed with my smiles. And I would say to you, meet me in real life, and you will see when you meet a person in real life, they smile to a real human being. But while reading questions or speaking, continuously smiling or even smiling at odd occasions, I do that when there is a need or when the need arises. When I talk about Palestinians being lions, I'm talking about Palestinians in Gaza. Otherwise, Mahmoud Abbas is Palestinian as well. I'm sure you understand that Mahmoud Abbas is not a lion. The Palestinians who are lions, we know who they are. So do not be so obsessed with my smiling or not smiling, but or whether I deem you Salafis as lions or not lions, but get on with the job. Someone says, Sheikh, you should make some lectures regarding end of times. Some people don't read books. The lectures are online. You can refer to the lectures online on the channel. Mahmoud Abbas is not Salafi. I asked about Salafi ones, Akhi. I'm not obsessed with your smile, Alhamdulillah, but it's the Sunnah nonetheless. Yes, it is Sunnah. When you meet me in person, I'm talking to a camera here. So when you meet me in person, and you cannot fake smiles as well. Remember, there are some people who fake smiles. When you meet me in person, I will smile to you. But also, Salafis who are Palestinian, what type of Salafis are you referring to? Are they Madkhalis? People who condemn the resistance? Or are you referring to Salafis who stick to the Athar in terms of being Athari? If they are Athari, of course, they are part of the resistance. But if you mean Salafis who condemn the resistance, then of course they are not lions. But if you mean Salafis who are Atharis, who follow the Hanbali school, which there are many Palestinians who follow the Hanbali school in Damascus, where I lived for a number of years, there were Palestinian Hanbalis who followed the Hanbali school, Atharis, real Salafis. I'm a Salafi also because I follow the way of the Salaf, Salafus Salihun. I deem myself a Salafi. So those type of Salafis are lions. Someone says, isn't Jerusalem supposed to be liberated by an army from the east Which nation is this? That is a liberation that occurs from Khurasan. That liberation occurs from Khurasan, not in the current war. That is at the time of Al-Mahdi. Someone asked, Sheikh, what is your opinion on Iran and its fight against Israel? We've covered this in the live streams. Iran has a right to defend itself. I mentioned that against Israeli aggression. The brother writes, Fair, I will meet you in person and test it, inshallah. Look, you made me smile now. So, no, we don't like madkhalis. We support all Muslims against non-Muslims and muwahideen. I do not care for madkhalis. Jazakumullahu khairan. Well, then you're a Salafi like me. I'm a Salafi in the sense I follow a Salafu Salihun, and I do smile when it's necessary. But do not expect someone to sit and make a fake online persona, fake smiles. People do that for being likable, so people like them more. I'm not going to pretend to smile to you when it's not from the heart. Remember that. Someone asks, Sheikh, how do we combat the fake scholars a lot from Saudi UAE regions that say boycotting is not practical or necessary? How you combat them is by boycotting, by carrying out the boycott. Do not follow the misguided fatwa. Someone asks, Sheikh, is Khidr alayhi salam still alive? The answer is that Khidr alayhi salam, there are two opinions on this. Some group of ulama, they believed he had passed away, and other ulama, they said that he is alive, like Al-Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah. Al-Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah also mentioned that he met him, Khidr alayhi salam. Al-Imam al-Qushayri also took this position. Someone asks, Sheikh, was Ibn Taymiyyah correct in his opinion on talaq? The answer is no. In fact, Abdul Rahman Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali rahimahullah, he responded to Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah, and Ibn Taymiyyah was corrected on this issue of talaq. Someone asked, Sheikh, are you able to do another book review session on one of your recommended readings? Insha'Allah ta'ala, in the oncoming Q&A, when we do one in the future, I will bring a book also for a book review. Someone asks, Sheikh, if Palestinians will win this war, why black banners will attack in the time of Al-Imam al-Mahdi? There will be a tyrant Muslim ruler ruling Al-Quds in the future, and the people of Khurasan will come to take that away from him. Perhaps that ruler will be the Sufyani, because the Syrian army will come into Al-Madinah Al-Munawwarah to intercept Al-Imam al-Mahdi. Someone asks, Sheikh, are there any books of Allama Fadlullah Khairabadi Rahimullah in English? Not that I am aware of. The Palestinian brother, he says, thank you for your response. We differ in Aqidah, but we are muwahideen and must support our ummah in no matter different schools. Please make dua. I lost 19 cousins in the village of Qabatiyah. Rahimahumullah. May Allah have mercy on those cousins of yours that passed away, and all the Palestinian and non-Palestinian Muslims, martyrs across the world. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have rahmah on their souls. Inshallah ta'ala, we will conclude today's live stream, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He give victory ajilan ghayra ajilin, very quickly, to the people of Palestine. Also make dua for a brother who has fallen ill and fallen into a coma. One of the Talabatul Ilm, one of my students locally, he's currently in the ICU. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him shifa and give sabr to his family and all the ill people across the world, the Muslims. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ease the suffering of the Muslims and ease the suffering of all humans who are innocent, who are madhloom. Any human that is madhloom, who is oppressed, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help the oppressed, whether Muslim or non-Muslim. Jazakumullahu khairan, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.